Today I'm going to show you how to make this 3-layered chocolate mousse. Chocolate mousse is not particularly difficult to make, but it is incredibly delicious, and a nice, light, airy dessert to help finish a meal. The first step in the mousse making process is to whip some cream. Now, you can use a hand mixer for this, but if you don't have one like I don't here, you can just do it by hand. It will take you a little bit longer and you're going to have to use a little bit of elbow grease, but you know, it's going to be worth it in the end. Now, as an aside, cream does whip a lot easier the colder it is, so make sure that you're using really cold, heavy whipping cream. Ideally, this is what you're looking for. You want soft peaks so that when you lift your whisk away from the cream itself, it'll hold its shape, but it won't be too firm. Next up, we're going to make our ganache for the chocolate mousse. First, we're going to put a little bit of milk into a small pot and then mix in our powdered gelatin before we put it over the heat. Now, if you're using powdered gelatin instead of sheets, make sure to put it into the milk while it's still cold. If you do so while the milk is already hot, it's going to bloom immediately and it's going to be next to impossible to actually incorporate it in correctly. Next, we're going to create a very basic double boiler by just putting a small pot with a little bit of water and bringing it up to a simmer. Then put a metal bowl on top of it so that you can melt your dark chocolate. This will make sure that the chocolate melts without running the risk of burning it. Once the dark chocolate is fully melted, and then once your milk and gelatin combo is nice and warm, you're going to mix it all together into a bowl. Make sure to incorporate everything really well to make sure that any clumps of gelatin don't form. Otherwise, that's really going to mess with your final product, and it's also not very nice to bite into that. Once the ganache is lukewarm, mix it into the soft peaked heavy cream that you made earlier. You're going to want to be careful not to mix it too hard because you don't want to whip it more. If you over whip the cream, it runs the risk of being slightly grainy when you finally actually bite into it. Now that the dark chocolate mousse is done, we're going to start the first layer of our chocolate mousse cup. I personally like to do them in stemless wine glasses, and make sure to put a hand rag or something like that underneath them so you can tap them to kind of smooth out the edges without actually breaking your glass. Once the first layer is done, put it in the freezer and let it set for about 10 to 15 minutes before starting with the milk chocolate layer. Doing the same thing as before, except with milk chocolate, you're just going to once again layer it here and then just give it a nice little tap just to smooth it out. Again, once that's done, just kind of clean it up a little bit just to make sure that it's nice and neat before sticking it in the freezer once again for about 10 to 15 minutes once more, just to make sure that it all sets. Last but not least is the white chocolate mousse layer. Again, you're just going to glob it in there, or you can use a piping bag if you want. I personally don't have one, so I'm not going to bother, and you can do this, although the piping bag will ensure that it's a little bit neater. Again, just tap the bottom of it to smooth it out and let it set in the freezer for about 10 to 15 minutes. Next, we're just going to take a little bit of dark chocolate and just kind of shave it here just to garnish it at the end. Once all the layers of your chocolate mousse are set, you can go ahead and garnish it and serve. I personally just like to sprinkle the chocolate shavings on top and then just garnish it with a little raspberry, just to add a little bit of color, and because raspberries goes really well with chocolate. And that's all there is to it. A nice, simple, yet elegant dessert that is a great way to finish even the largest meal. If you enjoyed this recipe and this video, please follow for more.